What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and as you all know, I keep a ridiculous amount of data in Excel sheets behind the scenes here on the PikiPikaPapa channel, and I use it to manipulate data and draw comparisons, and I use it to do trend analysis and all kinds of fun stuff because I know how hard you work for your money and I know how hard I work for mine. So whenever we decide to spend it on Pokemon products, I want us to have the best information we can at our fingertips. However, because I have so much data, I can't possibly do content around all of it. So I've started doing this state of the hobby video where I take all of that information and I try and put it into one digestible video for you and me to talk about. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about XY, Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon. We're going to talk about Scarlet and Violet. We're going to look about singles cards and booster boxes and tons of information. I'm going to try and make it succinct. I'm going to try and push through it, but it will take just a second. But I promise you the data that's in here is totally worth it because what has been going on in the hobby has been absolutely insane. It's been an incredible run here. And what you're looking at on these three graphs right here is the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards from every single set that has a booster box in Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and the XY era. And I started aggregating these values back in September of 2023 because I figured it would help us keep an eye and finger on the pulse of what's going on in the hobby at a macro level. And as you can see, Sun and Moon, XY, Sword and Shield, like they've all kind of had their ups and downs along the way. I wouldn't say they've performed independently, but they certainly have kind of written their own story. However, over the last couple months, it has been in lockstep. All three eras, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and XY have had a very, very strong run of it. Now, XY has had a 2024, unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's just absolutely wild. I can't even put the words together. Like every single month, the aggregate value of the top 20 singles cards from the XY era went up. Sword and Shield, look at those prices that we saw. Look at how they spiked and look at how they dropped. Remember the FOMO when all of the booster boxes started to sell out here in the Pokemon Center here in the US? We saw it spike and then we saw it drop and flatten out. And ever since that flattening period, ever since it hit that support line we talk about here on the channel, the prices have been really aggressive. And then the Sun and Moon space, when we started doing this, when I started keeping the data, Sun and Moon was in the middle of working its way down from some all-time highs. And then it did what we typically see. It started to hit a support line. It spent a couple months where the top 20 singles cards, the aggregate value didn't change. And then what happened after that? It started to go on a little bit of a run. Now that run has gotten much more aggressive over the last couple months. But listen, the whole market, we're in a bull market right now for the Pokemon space. I think Prismatic Evolutions has got people all kinds of in a frenzy. Good, bad, or indifferent. There's a ton of people who are buying and selling Pokemon cards right now. And that's what we're seeing in all three eras, where a lot of the singles cards, the vast majority of the single cards, have had a very, very strong last couple months. Now, we also look at the booster boxes, okay? So this is how the booster box prices have moved ever since September of 2023 for these three different eras. So this just says, listen, in September 23, if you were to buy all 12 booster boxes from the Sword and Shield, the Sun and Moon, the XY era, that's what it would have cost you, that original starting point. And then you can see how the booster box values have increased over time. And I have the prices where the booster boxes are now in an aggregate view highlighted because I think that's really interesting. If you look, all 12 booster boxes from the XY era, if you were to aggregate their value right now, it's at about $15,000. Now think about the XY era. There were not many sealed collectors back then. So when you think about these XY booster boxes, you look at the price graph is very, very, very jagged, right? There are high highs, low lows. There's not a lot of continuity to it. Well, it's because these booster boxes, one or two sales, because they don't sell that often, one or two sales can really adjust the price of the whole group of 12. But my big takeaway is this: the total value for those 12 booster boxes is $15,000 right now. Sun and Moon, conversely, you see a little bit of a smoother graph, right? It's been working its way up, and it's at $10,000 now. Like, that is a big number. $10,000. So if you were to buy all 12 of the booster boxes from the Sun and Moon era, it would set you back $10,000. Now, the reason I went through that obnoxiously long explanation of those two is to get to Sword and Shield. The aggregate value for all 12 booster boxes in the Sword and Shield era right now is $4,200, right around there. Think about it. The aggregate value for the 12 in Sun and Moon is at $10,000. The aggregate value for the 12 and XY is at $15,000. So I get it, there's going to be many, many more sealed Sword and Shield booster boxes in the future than there were of Sun and Moon, and certainly multiples more than there were of XY. But for me, when I'm thinking about how high can Sword and Shield go, I think there's a lot of interest in it. I think all 12 of them at $4,200 right now indicates that they still have a long way to run when we look at the booster box value from the other two generations. So I thought that was a really cool call out. I know booster box prices are getting crazy high right now, but again, comparing to the other two generations, I still think it has a ton of upside in those booster boxes from the Sword and Shield space. Now, the other thing that we looked at recently was we looked at the Scarlet and Violet singles from the same lens that we've been looking at the Sword and Shield, the XY, and the Sun and Moon. Now, I don't have the aggregate value because we haven't finished the Scarlet and Violet era yet. Once we finish the Scarlet and Violet era, I'll aggregate all of those prices and we'll do a comparison like we do in the other eras. But for right now, what has happened over the last couple months is these are Scarlet and Violet base set, Paldea Evolved, and Obsidian Flames, and how the top 20 singles cards from those two sets have performed over the last 2 months, okay? And look at how the average card in Scarlet and Violet that was in the top 20 has gained over 47% over the last 2 months. Paldea Evolved is up 28% over the last 2 months, and Obsidian Flame is up 37% over the last 2 months. To give you some idea, 151 over that same 2-month time period, I just did a video on it, is only up 17%. So these three sets right here, they were the beginning of Scarlet and Violet. There's no hard set and hard fast rule on when Pokemon will officially say, and they never will officially say like we're done reprinting, but the kind of general consensus is at the 2-year mark, they kind of die down on the reprints. So Scarlet and Violet, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames are getting near that point where we're starting to think the odds of them being reprinted are getting lower. So the supply that's already out in the market might end up being what it is. And remember too, the gem rate on these three sets was abysmally low. So not only are we getting near the end of when we can expect more of this product to be out in the market, but also the product that does come out in the market, the gem rate is just crazy low. So finding cards in good condition is incredibly high. Or incredibly low, excuse me. So I think what people are doing is I think they're starting to get a little bit of urgency. Okay, you know, this might be the last chance to get in these cards. And so that's why we're starting to see, you know, all of these cards really spike up in price. It's been incredible to watch here in the Scarlet and Violet era over the last couple months. The next thing that we're talking about here, and I wanted to ground everybody a little bit because last time we saw that really aggressive price spike, we talked about it, I called it a FOMO area, and I was really transparent. Like, I love collecting Pokemon cards, and I consider myself an investor. I collect them because I love them, I enjoy doing it with my kids, but ultimately I also do it because I think in the long run they're going to appreciate in value, and some point further down the road I will sell them, hopefully at a higher price than I bought them for, right? But I also have done this a very long time. I've been doing it in the sports card space for over 20 years, and I've been in the Pokemon space for like 4 or 5 years now at this point. And so a lot of times we go through these spikes, and almost always you are going to see the price come back down at some point. Look at what happened, as I told you early in this video. In the Sun and Moon era, when we started aggregating this data, we were on the downside of all-time highs in the Sun and Moon space. Remember, the Sword and Shield, we had that spike, and then it came back down. So we should all be excited about the price appreciation in these eras right now, but I want everybody to also be grounded a little bit. These prices are going to come back down at some point. Now, the odds are that even when they come back down, the prices will still be higher than where they started at. But the question is, when is they going to hit their highs? When are they going to start to come back down? Nobody knows the answer to that. I promise you right now, there's a lot of people out there who are very excited because a lot of things they said would happen are happening. But guess what? Everybody's right in a bull market. And guess what? There's a lot of people who are saying Pokemon cards are going to crash in the future. But guess what? We all know the prices are going to come back down. They're not going to go upwards and the right forever. Like, this is just the way that markets move, right? As long as when they come back down, those new support lines, those new, wherever they start to settle at after they come down is still higher than when they started, then guess what? If you're consistent and if you're doing this over time, you're still going to be really, really successful in this space. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with these two lines. Like, the new highs right now for Sun and Moon and the new high for Sword and Shield are both higher than when we started doing this. So as long as they continue to appreciate in value, even when they come back down, hopefully you'll still be above where you were before. But I just want to ground everybody in this. I try and be as transparent as possible. So the next thing that we're talking about are those alt arts from the Sword and Shield era. And look at the percentage gains. Now, these cards didn't start off as cheap cards. That Gengar VMAX from Fusion Strike, it started off as a card over $300. Yet guess what? Over the last 3 months, 3 short months, it's doubled. It's up 101 which is crazy to think about. And then you get the Giratina down there, right? Another big chase card from one of the biggest sets in the Sword and Shield era. Amazing artwork. Again, this card was starting off over $300 at $350. Now it's at $606. It's up 67% over the last 3 months. The Lugia. We talked about that Lugia from Silver Tempest for a long time. We continually said, listen, wait until the booster box sells out at the Pokemon Center here in the US. When that happens, we don't even know what Silver Tempest is capable of. We don't know what the Lugia is capable of. Like, that was in stock for far longer than I anticipated. I think far longer than most people anticipated. What happened? Booster box sold out. What have we seen? We've seen the chase card spike in price. We've seen the booster box spike in price. Again, it doesn't take a genius to know that. Like, I'm not sharing any sage wisdom with you, but it's awesome to see these things actually come to light. And then this card is up about 62% over the last 3 months. Just crazy the way these things have spiked up. And then again, coming back to booster box prices, Fusion Strike booster box was at $220 3 months ago, and now it is nipping at the heels of $500. The Brilliant Stars booster box 3 months ago sitting at $180. Again, everybody's right in a bull market, but I just kept saying Brilliant Stars. You got a Charizard alt art at the top. You got an Arceus alt art. You got the Legendary Bird gold cards in there. You got 2 Trainer Gallery Sylveons, 2 Trainer Gallery Umbreons. Everything Evolutions is hot. Just that set didn't make sense to me to be so low. And then it's still lagging a lot of these others, right? But it has appreciated in value, up 57% over the last 3 months, sitting in at sub $300 at $290. Then you got Lost Origin, obviously another great set at $383. Up 63% over the last 3 months. So still, when you look at these three right here, obviously Evolving Skies is the big one, and then you got Chilling Reign, which would come in at number 4. It's not on this list, but Chilling Reign has been slowing down a little bit, but I got a lot of money on Brilliant Stars. I think Brilliant Stars is going to end up being a dark horse and kind of pull away from some of these here at some point. So don't sleep on Brilliant Stars. Next thing we're talking about here is this right here, and I think this is really, really important for us to talk about. I'm going to go back. So what's really important for me to talk about here, sorry about that skip ahead, is when you look at booster boxes and when you look at top 20 singles cards prices, okay? Remember, we talked about how the market gets really frothy and then things end up coming back down. In the bottom graph, that's what you see, right? We talked about it. The singles card prices went up, they came back down, they hit a support line, and now they're taking off again. But look at what happened in booster boxes over the exact same period in the Sword and Shield era. They really didn't come down. I mean, they did like a percentage point and then maybe a percentage point and then they flattened out. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but sealed collecting is so much more consistent than the ups and downs and the volatility of singles cards. So while people were going all over the place in singles cards over that 6-month period in the Sword and Shield era, the people who were just collecting booster boxes were just steady Eddie adding to that collection. Prices not going up, prices not going down, finding those support lines, and then look at how they've taken off ever since. Less volatility, some amazing gains in the booster box space, and it was just a really, really interesting period to take right there. And then obviously, as you've already seen on the next slide, I'm going to talk about Prismatic Evolutions, because how could we talk about the state of the hobby and not talk about Prismatic Evolutions, right? You've got the Umbreon up there, the Sunbreon, if you will, that is absolutely killing the game. All of these cards are incredibly high priced. Now, I will tell you this, I shoot my videos in advance because I travel for work, so it's going to be interesting when you watch this video. Is it still a $1,500 card? Is that Sylveon still going at $573? Now, we know that the pull rates for special illustration rares in Prismatic Evolutions actually isn't that bad. It's like 1 in 45 packs, I believe. But because there's 32 special illustration rares, the pull rates, the individual pull rates of getting the one that you actually want is about 1 in every 1,400. And when you think about the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies, the odds of pulling that card was 1 in about 2,000 packs. So, you know, obviously the Moonbreon's much harder to pull, but that Sunbreon right there in Prismatic Evolutions is still an incredibly hard card to pull. So it'll be interesting to see how that card is able to do from a price perspective moving forward. And then I always end this video talking about the grading volume at PSA, because I think that is a great indicator of overall interest in the hobby. And again, prices are starting to spike, and what did we see leading up to that? We saw a big resurgence in the PSA grading volume in the TCG space. Grading volume was going down, 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 down for most of the year. If you look at that in the red box, I mean, it was uncanny how hard the PSA grading volume was being hit. And then all of a sudden, over the last 6 months, we have seen a resurgence. It has just been crazy to see that PSA volume spiking up. And then with Prismatic Evolutions and with Surging Sparks, and then with the pending Team Rocket set coming out, I guarantee there is going to be even more grading volume coming through, and the market's going to continue to be super excited and super frothy for I don't know how long. But I'm excited to be along the ride. I hope you guys have a ton of fun. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, we do a ton of data stuff like this, so hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. I appreciate you more than I can say. Hope you have an epic one, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.